A Wednesday talking Titans again because Tuesday was very busy when it came to the Tennessee Titans and several roster transactions. Jon Robinson sent a giant message to the locker room, to the coaching staff, to himself, to the fan base, to the media, to everybody as the Titans part ways with long snapper Bo Brinkley, cornerback Jonathan Joseph, and officially today, outside linebacker Vic Beasley. So that's the order they went out in. And three veteran Titans are now on the streets as Jon Robinson made big-time moves. The trade deadline was yesterday afternoon. Quiet on the deadline front, but the Titans already made their moves with Desmond King on Monday. So, Zach, we're going to react to the cuts that were made yesterday, talk about that message that Jon Robinson sent. And I feel like we have an interesting question, too, is do the moves Jon Robinson made yesterday, does that make you have more or less trust in Jon Robinson as Titans GM? And there's one NFL team after the trade deadline that I think we can all point our fingers at and just laugh out loud together. So we'll do that towards the end of the show. And Wednesday always means throwing shade. So hope everybody's got their shade ready on this big Wednesday. Zach, welcome in. Let's get this thing fired up.
Yeah, going to have a big show today, a lot to discuss after yesterday. I mean, a whirlwind of news came down late afternoon, kind of before everybody started watching the election. And wow, I mean, it's a lot to unpack. I have my personal opinions about things. Some should have been done earlier, but finally, Jon Robinson trying to move this team in the right direction. So we'll get to your opinions and ours. Before we get started, though, please share the show. Also, J-Rome, he is officially first. So good job on that, right? I mean, we got to get in here. We got to get in here. We got to share the show. Bottom right corner of your screen, if you're watching, on Periscope or on Twitter, please share to your timeline. We need to pop up in your Twitter followers timeline. How that works out is you guys put the retweet button and help us out by distributing the show. What's going on Twitch, what's going on YouTube, and what's going on Facebook, bottom left corner of your screen. More people will pile in the next 5 to 10 minutes. You know, it's kind of like mail-in balloting. You know, more people are gonna be piling in over the next couple of minutes. Please share the show. Bottom left corner of your screen if you're watching on Periscope and Twitter, but bottom right corner of your screen if you're watching on Facebook. Please share the show around. You'll see it. Share the show. We need to pop up in your Facebook friends news feed. And Austin, I am subtly very excited about this show. And I don't like anybody losing their job unless it's warranted.
Yes, for sure. And you mentioned the mail-in balloting. There's always going to be that one guy who pops in the show like 55 minutes into it as we're talking about an industry topic that gets mad at us for not talking about sports. So maybe that'll happen later on today. But let's get it going officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Zach Bingham. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at A to Z Sports. You like our Facebook page at A to Z Sports Nashville. YouTube, Twitch as well. We're Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, and we go live every weekday morning at 8 Central Time. Got to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us, and they help you guys out. Renters Warehouse Nashville, the professional landlords in the Nashville area. Renterswarehouse.com is where you go to find out how much your home can rent for. Mandu, the Pulse of Fitness. I got a Mandu workout later today. It's going to be a 15-minute workout, full body, in and out. Feels great. Simulates 5+ hours in the weight room. Mandu.com. Your first workout's free. The Tucker Agency, Nashville's independent insurance agency, saving you financially on your personal insurance at tuckertn.com. Calvin and Subtle for your new hardwood floors and finishings as the holidays approach. calvinandsettle.com. And the Bone and Joint Institute. Whenever that injury happens, make sure you get the best care possible. boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination in comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Zach, yesterday, Buck had 2 primetime shows because he did not feel like going head-to-head with the election because that's just an automatic L for him.
If he would have had to done that, he would have been on for like 7 to 10 hours, right?
Correct, because it would have never ended. So, Buck, we planned to have Buck do a little special, and then, of course, the news dump happens right after Buck ends primetime special number 1, so he flips it around, does primetime emergencies special number 2. And so a lot of things happening yesterday. It started with Terry McCormick breaking the news that Bo Brinkley, the long snapper since 2012, cut by the Titans after back-to-back games with bad snaps. Bo Brinkley went on the COVID list. When he came off the COVID list, he was not very good as a long snapper and lost his job. Then Jonathan Joseph, cornerback, veteran, very much a veteran, 36 years old, cut. And today officially is when Vic Beasley will go out the door. What was your reaction to learning about all three of those guys losing jobs yesterday?
So honestly, my first reaction was that of the Patriot way, is do your job. And if you can't do your job, get the hell out of here. And all three of these guys were unable to do their job adequately, or at least the way that they were paid. Bo Brinkley, it's very simple. You're paid to snap the football. And look, I've heard Bo Brinkley has been really good in practice and has not missed or has rolled anything. But in the games, the straw that broke the camel's back is he got the MV punter hurt. You can't get brunt. If it would have never, if you really want to know, Austin, Brett Kern would have never have hurt his wrist if the snap would have been correct. True. And you can't deny that. And I think Jon Robinson took a hard look at that and said, look, Bo Brinkley is not helping our football team. He's hurting our football team. He's got to go. We'll go find somebody else.
Now, let me pause on that because you're right. If Bo Brinkley with the domino effects, that's how it works. If Bo Brinkley's snap would have been on point, the extra point probably would have been made, and it would have been a 10-point game. But Brett Kern is also the reason why Brett Kern broke his wrist or hurt his wrist or whatever it was, because Brett Kern should never, ever again try to attempt passes when bad snaps happen. Bad snap is going to happen.
That's not his fault. It's Bo Brinkley's fault.
No,
we'll move on.
Zach, it's both their fault.
It's not. It's not. Who had the first action? Bo Brinkley did. That's why Bo Brinkley is cut and Brett Kern is cut. So don't sit there and support that. Bo Brinkley, he's got to go. He didn't do his job adequately. So he's gone. We move on.
Okay.
He's out. All right? That's what you asked my opinion. That's my opinion, Austin. Jonathan Joseph has been trash for some time now. He's been hurting this football team. We've talked about it at length. He does not improve the football team. You can't play 12 yards off the ball, okay? You can only do that maybe once or twice a game, but not every single damn snap. And that's what Jonathan Joseph was doing because he's 36 years old. I don't know if it was a strategy to go out and sign him to try to get Jadeveon Clowney, but that strategy backfired because he had to play minutes. So he's no longer gone. Goodbye. And then you get to Vic Beasley. And I have a lot to say about Vic Beasley that I will kind of dive more into here in a little bit. But Vic Beasley should have never been on this football team in the first place. And that's Jon Robinson's error. He corrected his error. And as a general manager, you're going to make mistakes. You can't be perfect, right? That it's impossible to be a perfect general manager. It's impossible to be a perfect manager in life, in business, in whatever. You can't be perfect. So you're going to make mistakes, but you have to see the writing on the wall. You have to weigh your risk. And I think Jon Robinson did a poor job of weighing his risk by paying Vic Beasley the amount of money. And then because of the money, he gave him an opportunity to come onto this football team, didn't practice for a long, long time because he was dealing with something, and then came in and really it was a detriment to the team to come in and pay a pass rush, which you had to improve, and they did with Jadeveon Clowney. But unknowingly, they thought Vic Beasley was going to be the remedy, and ends up he was, and I don't want to call him a cancer, but he didn't help things, okay? Because I don't know how others felt about Vic Beasley within the locker room as the season progressed, so I don't want to speak for that. But Vic Beasley, that is a red flag you cannot put on your football team. And Jon Robinson learned a lesson, and that's why Vic Beasley is no longer on the team.
Yeah, Roger says Vic Sleasley, and then Donald said Beasley not showing up to camp should have been a sign.
Oh, it was. I said that I carried the torch on this.
No,
okay.
There was
no. I was the number one guy who said this guy does not deserve any chances.
But here's the situation that Vic Beasley put the Titans into. And maybe if this wasn't a COVID year, maybe Vic Beasley would have been forced to go to mandatory mini camps, and you would have found out in June whether this guy was committed or not in August whether he was committed or not. And then maybe he would have built a better rapport with the teammates, but it was a COVID year. And the Titans media relations were heard nothing. They were ghosted by Vic Beasley for months and months and months after he was signed. The media typically gets a press availability with new free agents and draft pick signings right when they get signed or drafted. Vic Beasley did not talk to the Titans media via Zoom for like 6 months when everybody else had multiple times. Vic Beasley was a red flag when he went MIA for like 10 days at the start of training camp, but he had the Titans by the nads. The Titans could not do anything there. They had to at least hope and cross their fingers and say, well, hopefully Vic Beasley can come in here and play well and we get something out of it. Because if the Titans cut Vic Beasley in August, which you could argue they should have done, they would have just cost themselves $9 million for no reason. They had to do something. They had to at least figure out what he had on the field. And because of the non-football injury, that made it more difficult because he didn't play until week 3. But Vic Beasley, now that he's played 4 or 5 games, they know he's worthless on the field just like he is off the field. So now they can make the cut. But they had the Titans. He had the leverage versus the Titans because of the contract that Jon Robinson signed.
Yeah, and that was my whole issue on the fact, right? It's do your homework. And the Atlanta Falcons could have told you that Vic Beasley was a bad egg. I mean, a really bad egg. But all of his actions, people don't change that often. Vic Beasley did not skip a beat from Atlanta and all the trouble he caused that organization to the Titans and how he caused all the trouble for their organization and then picked up a check in the process. But I blame the Tennessee Titans for not doing their homework on this.
Yeah,
they put themselves in the situation to be grabbed by those cojones and they couldn't do anything. So that's on them.
Yeah, well, you also have this. Here's the actual issue, is that Jon Robinson and Vic Beasley share the same agent. And the sales job from that agent, who's supposed to have both sides' best interest in mind, that's the sales job. So Jon Robinson got by his own agent who was trying to get a payday. And agents usually get 3% of contracts. Well, congrats to that guy for getting 3% of $9.5 million from Vic Beasley for basically doing absolutely nothing in his short stint with the Tennessee Titans.
All right, so let's set Bo Brinkley aside, even though Austin and I kind of disagree on an issue on that. Who is the bigger detriment to the Titans? Jonathan Joseph or Vic Beasley? Who was the bigger detriment to the Titans? Was it Joseph or Beasley? Both have been cut, and this is look, it's a glaring issue because mid-season, GMs shouldn't cut 3 starters or 3 guys that play quite a bit. Beasley wasn't a starter. Bo Brinkley was a starter, and Jonathan Joseph was a starter. Vic Beasley was playing minutes, and he was getting paid $9 million, which is outrageous. Mm-hmm. But this doesn't usually happen. So who is the bigger detriment to the Titans? Was it Jonathan Joseph or Vic Beasley? You could argue Bo Brinkley because he hurt the most important player on the team, which
Bo Brinkley did not
Brett
hurt
Kern. He did.
Right? No,
he did. Get that on your thick skull. Without a bad snap.
I swear to God, if you think I have
Brett
a thick skull, then you need to look
fine.
in the mirror. No. Okay, that's just ridiculous, though. But first, let me tell you guys about the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. If you get hurt by your own doing and you need sports medicine or orthopedic care, the Bone and Joint Institute is the place to go. Boneandjointtn.org. That is where you should turn. They have the best care possible from the beginning of the process to the end of it. Boneandjointtn.org.
I look at it like this, Austin. It's like a quarterback leaving a wide receiver out in the middle of nowhere and pop, boom, hits him. You can't set your guy up for disaster.
That's not.
And I think my personal opinion is that Bo Brinkley set Brett Kern up for disaster because he couldn't do a simple job that he is paid handsomely to do. You can get paid handsomely at mybookie.ag. Code MyTitans. Double your first deposit. You put in $50, you get to play with $100. You put in $40, you get to play with $80. You put in $500, you get to play with $1,000. That's our deal with mybookie.ag this football season. Use code MyTitans.
All right, we'll get to your comments in a second. Who was the bigger detriment to the Titans? Was it Vic Beasley or Jonathan Joseph? Grizz, Titans fan, says, why can't Austin get through his head that Bo Brinkley wasn't playing well? Dude, I know Bo Brinkley wasn't playing well. That's not the problem. Not the thing I have an issue with. I have an issue with Zach saying that Bo Brinkley got Brett Kern hurt. No, he did not. Bo Brinkley had a bad snap. Brett Kern made a bad decision by trying to run and throw with a bad snap.
He wouldn't have had to make that decision without the bad snap.
Nobody is discrediting that.
Well, you're not bringing that up.
Zach, time out, bro. Chill the hell out. Brett Kern needs to, when bad snap happens, nothing really good happens after a bad snap in the play. That's what Brett Kern should have done. If Brett Kern would have done that, Brett Kern's wrist would still be okay.
Bo Brinkley's been getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do one move.
No, again, both had bad plays on that one play, but Bo Brinkley did not get Brett Kern hurt.
He
All
did,
right, so
and we'll disagree on
Zach, what is your answer to who was the bigger detriment to the Titans? Was it Jonathan Joseph or was it Vic Beasley?
So I think this is a very difficult question because Dom brings up something I'm sure you're going to bring up is Joseph gave up points. He absolutely did. But the detriment to the team, I think it was Vic Beasley because this culture that Jon Robinson and Mike Vrabel and the Titans had built, they brought an outsider in that already had priors, if you want, right? He was in Atlanta. And I mean, Austin, have you had Falcons fan? I mean, they've tweeted at me saying, I told you so.
Yeah. No, and that's like Carlos Medina, who does radio down in Atlanta. I was going back and forth with him throughout the summer about Vic Beasley. And he's like, Vic Beasley's not a bad person. Vic Beasley's a fine human being. He just doesn't love football. And that's the situation, is that Jon Robinson has once again put a lot of investment into somebody from Clemson who does not love football.
Well, and I think it goes a little bit more than love football. It's about a contract. It's about trust. It's about a deal. It's about a bond, a word, right? That's a character. That's a character issue. That's not a love or a hate of football. That is, you signed a deal to be the best person that you can be for this organization. $9 million, okay? That's no joke. You sit out, and I think, and I'll go on record, I think the Vic Beasley signing is worse than the Kevin Dodd drafting because of the money. And this is why I answer the question the way I do. Set Jadeveon Clowney aside, okay? Vic Beasley was the only big piece that this AFC champion appearing team signed to get them over the hump. Everybody else was back. Tannehill and Henry were back, okay? Adoree Jackson got his fifth-year contract picked up, all that. But the one outsider that Jon Robinson really put his entire franchise on the line for was Vic Beasley for $9 million. That was a terrible, dreadful decision. And I bet you Jon Robinson today would tell you the same thing because he just cut his ass, right?
Yeah. Well,
so the bigger detriment inside the locker room, I think Jonathan Joseph, as far as we know, he's a leader, he's a vet, he's respected, maybe not on the field, but off the field. And Vic Beasley was never any of those things. You heard the window dressing of Roger Saffold saying, hey, we're going to treat him like he's one of our boys. Yeah. But from some of the stuff that I heard, Vic Beasley is a very quiet, introverted individual.
Which is not a bad thing. And you can.
But Austin, it is when you come in already behind the eight ball because that makes misunderstanding, right? If a big, high quality, high paid free agent comes in late and he's very quiet and doesn't explain himself, and he didn't, right? He didn't really explain why he did what he did. All he said was, well, there was sides thought different ways.
It was a misunderstanding, like a misunderstanding about what? A misunderstanding about a 1 year, $9.5 million fully guaranteed contract. I don't understand how that's as black and white as a contract as it gets. It's a 1 year deal. You get all the money guaranteed and you play football. And Vic Beasley could not hold up his end of the deal.
And so as a detriment, that $9 million could have gone to a couple of other players. It could have gone to another cornerback not named Jonathan Joseph, right?
Sure.
That's where I'm thinking, because they had DB issues also. The one draft pick named Christian Fulton wasn't going to fix it in the second round, right? So I look at that money that they attributed, and you talk about detriment to not only the locker room but the team. My answer is Vic Beasley.
So real quick, before I get to my answer, I'm going to go back to what you said about that you think Beasley's a bigger miss than Dodd. I disagree with that. Kevin Dodd was the 33rd overall draft pick in a draft, the second round, the highest pick. I think he was the second selection in that second round. And there was a lot of guys that were big name players right after him.
They had multiple picks in the second round, though,
including Derrick Henry and Austin Johnson, that I was going to say. But still, the 33rd overall pick is basically a first-round draft pick, and you got nothing out of that. Kevin Dodd was drafted to be a cornerstone of the defensive rebuild under Jon Robinson as basically a first-round draft pick, and he gave you nothing.
Here's where you're wrong.
Okay.
Here's where you're wrong, is because when you sign a free agent, you have a history, right? You have the opportunity. It costs you more money, because you can look at his history and say, is he a good football player or not? And Vic Beasley was like a yo-yo, right? He had one good year.
Vic Beasley, they were both, Dodd and Beasley were both one-year wonders. The Vic Beasley thing was an understood, it was
Dodd a one-year wonder?
Yeah, Clemson, absolutely.
I think he was a one-game wonder.
His senior year, he had a lot of numbers, and he absolutely helped himself by having a badass national title game. But Kevin Dodd was a multi-year investment. Vic Beasley was always going to be a one-year flyer. Kevin Dodd, a second-round pick, the 33rd overall pick at that, was a multi-year, high-level investment that should be on his second contract right now.
A free agent is less risk because you have a history. You have a resume. A draft pick is, you don't know what you're going to get.
Okay.
You never know, right? He has never played in the league. That's why I think you're misconstrued on this.
No, again, we have different opinions. I'm not misconstrued on anything. We just differ. So just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I'm misconstrued.
Well, but you're not bringing up points that support.
I am bringing up points. That Kevin Dodd was a high-level investment that went awfully wrong. Vic Beasley was not a high-level investment.
Should you not have a better opportunity to get a free agent correct compared to a draft pick? Yes or no?
But again, it was a risk of a free agent signing. That's why it was a one-year prove-it deal. That's what happens in the NFL. It's 1 year prove it, and if you don't prove it, then you're gone. Kevin Dodd could not be around the team for a year plus and was cut before second year.
And Dickerson, thank you. And $9 million was not a high-level investment?
Compared to a second-round draft pick of 33
yes,
overall?
Compared to a second-round draft pick that you had two other draft picks within the round.
Zach, you need that second-round draft pick to be a cornerstone.
They drafted Derrick Henry like selections later.
Yes, and it would be great if you would have been able to have Kevin Dodd on a second contract too. And Ardonius says, I'm convinced Zach doesn't even listen to Austin when he talks.
I absolutely, I know exactly. I can repeat exactly what you've said.
Go for it.
And it doesn't make any sense that you don't think that a free agent is less riskier because you know what their resume is compared to a draft pick. That you had three other picks. You have to look at the actual round, right? So the bigger failure of the team is signing the only guy that you signed outside of the building after you went to the AFC Championship game to get you to a Super Bowl. Look at all the other teams that have gone in. So that's the bigger detriment.
No. Kevin Dodd was a bigger miss because he just flat out misevaluated everything about the human being with face-to-face contact. Jon Robinson got worked by his agent, in my opinion, with the Vic Beasley thing. Back to the initial question is, who is a bigger detriment between Vic Beasley and Jonathan Joseph? You say it's Vic Beasley because, look, the $9.5 million contract, which the Titans got $500,000 back because of the fines of not showing up. But that was a big whiff, absolutely, on Jon Robinson. But, Zach, I think Jonathan Joseph is what cost them the game against Cincinnati, single-handedly. Vic Beasley didn't help anything. Vic Beasley absolutely hurt in that game, but Jonathan Joseph cost them the game. Jonathan Joseph's inability to attempt to play his position cost the Titans points and an opportunity at beating the Bengals, which they should have beaten. And you can argue that Jonathan Joseph played a major role in the Titans losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers because he couldn't guard anybody there. I think when you're talking specifically on the field this season, Jonathan Joseph a bigger detriment than Vic Beasley because he was playing worse. Now, if you want to bring in the culture, which was your main point, I can't disagree with that about Vic Beasley.
Well, that's why we asked the question the way we did. We didn't say on-field detriment. We just said detriment. That's all encompassing.
Exactly. And we didn't just say off-field detriment. We left it open-ending for a reason.
Vic Beasley didn't help him on either side.
Zach, I know that. Like, I don't know why. Like, okay, I agree with what you're saying, but I think Jonathan Joseph in this moment right now was a bigger detriment because he was so bad at his job that the pass rush wasn't able to even attempt to do their job. Jonathan Joseph put in zero effort as a cornerback. Zero effort. And you can say Vic Beasley put in zero effort as a pass rusher too. But Jonathan Joseph was playing 8 to 12 yards off the ball. Then when the guy caught the ball in front of him, he barely made an effort to go actually make the tackle. He almost allowed the receiver to run to him so he can make the tackle by not moving.
Yeah, and I think the overall theory that why we are talking about this today is this is not surprising. It should not be surprising to anybody watching this show or anybody in the Titans organization. Jonathan Joseph is 36 years old. He shouldn't be playing cornerback in the NFL against young, spry wide receivers like T. Higgins. Like, he should not. He can't do it. Vic Beasley, everything that we saw from him and from the Atlanta Falcons, whether it was off the field or even on the field coming off of last season, it wasn't very good, that he wasn't going to be very good either. He wasn't going to be worth $9 million.
Jonathan,
we shouldn't be surprised that both are detriments to this team.
Here's the problem. Jonathan Joseph never deserved to make the roster. Never deserved to be on the 53-man roster coming out of training camp. But
neither did Vic Beasley, in my opinion, but that's me.
Well, but Vic Beasley, because of the contract that was signed versus Joseph and Beasley, you had to at least give Beasley an opportunity because it was a fully guaranteed $9 million deal. He was on the non-football injury list. You had to at least hope that he would give you something. And they gave him a shot. He played 4 or 5 games. They gave him a shot, and nothing was coming of it, so they got rid of him. Jonathan Joseph should have never made the team out of camp. Jonathan Joseph burned his shot in training camp when he could not guard Khalif Raymond on any drill they did. Or he couldn't guard anybody on any drill they did. Open field tackling, one-on-one the open field, or one-on-one the red zone. Jonathan Joseph was losing every rep. He did not deserve to make the team, but he did anyway because Mike Vrabel's comfortable with him. And I think Jonathan Joseph cost the Titans the Bengals game way more than Vic Beasley did in that game.
Yeah, well, again, that one game compared to a detriment for a long, long time. You could say that Jonathan Joseph helped them get Jadeveon Clowney, which was a win. Vic Beasley did not help them do anything.
But that happened before the 53-man roster.
Vic Beasley only hurt the team. He never helped it.
I agree. But again, do I have to repeat myself about the contract? The Titans' hand was forced. They could not have cut Vic Beasley before the season started.
But you're saying the same point on Jonathan Joseph. He should not have made the team.
Listen to what I'm saying. Vic Beasley did not participate in camp because of a non-football injury. Therefore, they did not see him waste his opportunity. They got to watch Jonathan Joseph in 24 practices before having to make that decision, and they still kept him anyway. There's a big difference in the two situations.
Yeah, and and this is where you talk about different opinion. I value detriment off the field in culture more, and I think that Vic Beasley did more damage in that area on top of not being able to line up on sides on defense. Your one responsibility, D. Ford. Like, come on. You've got great examples on why not to do that, and he did that twice.
It's just so easy to not line up on.
And that is one of your biggest pet peeves in football. Arson, there's one thing that you hate. There's a couple of things that you hate.
There's two. Don't kick off out of bounds. That's stupid. You got 53.5 yards wide to not do that. And then don't line up off sides. I don't understand.
Mine is don't have bad snaps. But anyway, we digress. I think that we are going – I thought about this, Austin, even before we made the question, and then we have some time where we're doing work before we start the show.
Yeah.
This may be the most difficult question that we have asked in the history of A to Z Sports.
Okay.
Because it has a wave of emotion, of effect, because you can answer it. You talk about like you can answer it different ways. Like I still don't know my answer, and I've had some time to think about this question. So I'm going to ask the question,
okay,
and then I'm going to tell you about one of our great sponsors. But listen up, and we want you to answer this. Does cutting Vic Beasley, Jonathan Joseph, and Bo Brinkley give you more or less trust in Jon Robinson, right? Because it opens up the mistakes, but it also is a correction. Should you trust J-Rob more or less because of some of his decisions? That's the question that we're asking. But first, I am going to tell you guys about the Tucker Agency, TuckerTN.com, Nashville's independent insurance agency. Very, very simple. If you want to save money on your home insurance, your life insurance, your car insurance, renter's insurance, if you rent, TuckerTN.com. It's the easiest email you'll make all day. After the show, email Will, W-I-L-L, at TuckerTN.com. All you have to do, byline, A to Z Sports, that subject, A to Z Sports. Then you come in and say, hey, it's your name, heard about you on A to Z Sports. How do I save money on my insurance? Will and his team will put together a policy for you. The average customer that emails them saves 20% on their insurance. That's money back into your pocket. That's Will at TuckerTN.com.
All right, A to Z Sports here live on a Wednesday. Don't forget, if you want to make some money, mybookie.ag, code MyTitans to double your first deposit. I kind of have a feeling the Titans are going to demolish the Bears after the moves that have been made this week. So mybookie.ag, code MyTitans to double your first deposit. Also, just got this email in now that Jon Robinson will meet with the media via Zoom at 10:35 this morning. So just under 2 hours away. So be looking for that. We'll have coverage of that live on, not live on A to Z Sports, but on our social media of Jon Robinson addressing the cutting of Vic Beasley, Jonathan Joseph, and Bo Brinkley.
I want to say this, and we'll answer this question. A lot of people are asking more trust. The one thing that I have a lot of respect for Jon Robinson is after every mistake, he comes to the podium. Like, we didn't ever see Jonathan Joseph or Vic Beasley, did we? I mean, we saw Vic Beasley maybe once or twice.
Yeah, twice.
But
Joseph was made available. It's a weird year, so I'm not holding that against the players.
Yeah, but one thing that is true, after all of these decisions, Jon Robinson is willing to answer the hard questions. And he doesn't mind doing it, and that gives me more respect for him. But in this situation, you know, he basically admitted 3 massive wrongs within the midst of one of the biggest years heading into this season as far as ability to win a Super Bowl.
Right. So Beasley was absolutely a mistake. Do you trust Jon Robinson more or less after cutting these 3 players? Hunter says J-Rob missed mistakes by cutting his guys and wanted the roster to be better. So he trusts more there. Like I always mention this a few times a year. In journalism school, they teach you if you're wrong, get right as fast as you bleeping can. And Jon Robinson does a pretty good job of that. He cut Kevin Dodd promptly for the most part. He cut Parrish Cox very promptly. I mean, you could argue he could have cut Jonathan Joseph on Monday, but he had to go trade for Desmond King before that. So Jonathan Joseph and Vic Beasley and Bo Brinkley cut promptly. You know, you could even argue that Bo Brinkley would maybe be cut prematurely because Bo Brinkley's been somebody who's been doing this at a high level that Jon Robinson, the first thing Jon Robinson did as Titans GM, people think is the DeMarco Murray trade. He actually re-upped the tripod of Suckup, Kern, and Brinkley to multi-year deals before that. And now that tripod is no longer standing.
It's disappeared.
Because Brett Kern will be missing some time with a wrist injury. So do you trust Jon Robinson more or less after cutting Joseph, Beasley, and Brinkley yesterday? So let's get some comments. Scott says more. Dom says cutting Beasley lights a fire under the behinds of other defensive players. Davidson says on YouTube, I trust J-Rob a little less. He cuts these players to save face from harsh criticism down the road. How do you feel about that? I don't think Jon Robinson's cutting players to save face. I don't think
he's cutting because the players that he signed aren't adequate.
Right.
That's what I would say. And Chad comes in and says, nothing has changed for me. Tanner says, I appreciate him cutting the problem. It shows he takes responsibility for his pickups. And also, if you don't come to the Titans and play for the team like everyone else, you're gone. Bobby says more. J-Rob's decision makes up for bad. But again, he's making up for bad. A lot of Titans fans, as I've seen, more respect from J-Rob. Stanley says more. He owned his mistake. Now he's remedied it. No GM is 100%.
Oh, being a GM is like being a batter in baseball. You're going to do everything. You're going to hit singles. You're going to strike out looking. You're going to strike out swinging. You're going to pop it up. You're going to hit home runs. You're going to get out. You're going to have that little bit of everything. Now, luckily for Jon Robinson, he hit a grand slam with Ryan Tannehill. He had the best contract possible for Derrick Henry. He's drafted Kevin Byard in the 3rd round. He's found guys like Jayon Brown and late round draft picks. Jeffrey Simmons was a great luck, but take advantage of the opportunity type situation. So he's done a lot of good things, but he's got Dodd, Beasley, Joseph, Sly Williams, Josh Klein's big contract that got waxed after 1 year. There's some other there's several of these, but the best thing you can say about Jon Robinson is that he's always admitted his mistakes promptly. And I agree with Donald. I trust him more. It takes a man to admit a mistake. And
what about Don? He says more respect, less trust.
I think that's a fair comment.
I agree. Don, I think that's a really great comment. Here's why I struggled, Austin, and I'll kind of go to what you've been saying, and that is I'm push and pull because one thing that Jon Robinson has kind of showed that he's made his biggest mistakes is not being able to tell if some guys love football. But that's the one thing that he says that he can do, right?
And if you talk to everybody who is involved in football evaluation at the college level and at the pro level, they always say that's the hardest thing to find out. The hardest question to find the correct and true answer of is, do you love football truly? Recruiters and recruiting analysts and coaches struggle with that too when it comes to high school players. Do you love football or do you love recruiting?
Do you love football or do you love the idea of football? Or do you love getting, in Vic Beasley's case, getting paid to play football?
Exactly. And so that's I don't hold that against anybody. Jon Robinson's had a couple bad luck things with guys that he got burned by, and they both were teammates at Clemson. So I don't know if that's a common denominator or not. But he also had his agent in his ear, who's Vic Beasley's agent. So that's a wrinkle of the story in the Vic Beasley situation that I really want to know exactly what was said both ways.
Shouldn't that's on you to make sure that your agent, that you know what your agent's best interest is. Right. And so that's a character thing, right? Surround yourself with people that make you better instead of people that make your life and job more difficult.
Puka has a good comment, and I want to get to that here in a second. But first, let me tell you guys about Mandu, the Pulse of Fitness, Mandu.com. Your first workout's free. Mandu.com is a 15-minute workout. The Pulse of Fitness, why? Because it's full-body electronic muscle stimulation. It's the best workout I've ever done. It takes no time whatsoever, and it gets every muscle group. There's no skipping leg day, but it's also easy on your body and easy on your joints. If you can't lift weights like you used to because of an injury or because of lack of time, Mandu is the answer for you. Mandu.com, your first workout is absolutely free.
All right, Austin, I'm curious to hear what Puka says, and then I will disclose my answer for this, and I've kind of been going back and forth of it, but I have found it.
Yeah, Puka says this is such an unusual year. Couldn't see face-to-face, which free agents face-to-face, which is maybe why Jon Robinson put faith into his agent. And I have to allow for the variables to have an impact on the situation. and that's very true comment from Puka, is that normally in the draft process and in the free agent process less because it's such a fast, quick moving thing with the new year date opening. But with the draft and a guy that we haven't really mentioned yet today, Isaiah Wilson.
I was about to,
but there's a lack of relationship building throughout those processes to find out more if they're a good fit for your team. And the reason why I say I trust Jon Robinson more in this question is because I do believe he has the team's best interest in mind. And if it's eating $9.5 million by getting Vic Beasley out of here, that's the best thing for the team. And Jon Robinson's not afraid to eat that money.
Yeah, and you mentioned to me this the other day. I mean, look at the draft class this year. What are they doing?
Nothing. Laurel Murchison played 7 snaps on defense. Chris Jackson, who was the last pick of the class, you're getting the most out of right now. Now, injuries to Evans and injuries to Fulton have been unfortunate to see.
Cole McDonald's back in Hawaii.
Like I said, waste of a draft pick. Right as they drafted the Hawaii quarterback in the 7th round, he wasted that one. Stupid decision to make that draft pick. And then also Isaiah Wilson not really doing anything and just creating negative headlines is what he's doing.
So I understand that it's very hard to be a general manager of a football team, right? So I give him some grace on that. Picking the right guys, and he has picked some right guys. We're talking about a lot of maybe the wrongs that he did. But I think that I answer this question as, and the question is, does cutting Beasley, Joseph, and Brinkley give you more or less trust in Jon Robinson? I think I answer it when they cut him, right? I think Beasley, he was in a tough situation to cut him before the season because of the money that he put himself in. He put himself in that situation by signing him a contract.
Rock in a hard place.
And Jonathan Joseph, he had seen enough where he could no longer put him back on the team, on the field. Because as you said, he lost them the Bengals game. One of many mistakes, but Jonathan Joseph was the most glaring. And Bo Brinkley, and I'm sure that hurt Jon Robinson to cut Bo Brinkley. I mean, he's been a part of this organization for a long time, and he has been consistent. But the second, and it's long snapping, right? It is the easiest job in the NFL. Everybody talks about kickers and punters. You have one job. They have a rule that a guy can't tackle you over the ball, right? They
cannot hit you while your head is down,
right?
My son out of the womb will be long snapping.
Right? So there's no excuse. So he moved swiftly on Bo Brinkley. Yeah. I think he moved as swiftly as he could on Jonathan Joseph once he made the Desmond King trade, right? Because he wanted to get a good player to replace him. And then the Vic Beasley, I don't have much for you on Vic Beasley. But 2 out of 3, I will say I trust him more. And then I'm glad he did this during the show, Austin. He's going to be made available. He's going to face the fire. And that gives me respect.
Sure.
And that's the key thing. Do I respect Jon Robinson? He's willing to answer the tough questions instead of running and hiding.
Well, and he takes the blame. Like, he was the one who started off the Kevin Dodd availability after cutting him, saying it was his fault.
And he had to fix all these problems now. You know why? Because they're 5-2. They have the leverage of going after and winning the division. They still got to play the Colts twice. I understand that. But he had to do this now.
You got to get the rotting fruit out of the basket before everything else goes bad too. And I think that's what they're doing.
All right. Get the guy with coronavirus out of the building. Because everybody
they tried to do that, but the NFL's rules mess it up with Greg Maber. Yeah, for sure. A to Z Sports here live. After Jon Robinson cut 3 players. Monsoon says Brinkley caused the situation. How Kern got hurt. Ha ha ha. Types 5 says, remember, J-Rob's still learning as a GM, hasn't been here for long. No GM hits all the time. I think Jon Robinson's been here long enough. Jon Robinson's been here for 5 years. Now, one thing that Jon Robinson has not had to do yet that is a major just unchecked box because of lack of opportunity is draft a quarterback at high. That's the one thing we've kind of waited to see.
But he amended that because he went out and got it untraditionally.
Yeah, that's why I called it an unchecked box. It's not an X or a check.
He's fired a coach, right? I mean,
he's fired a coach. He's hired a coach. And so far, I think the coach is a good situation. But Jon Robinson overall is a grading out very high as a general manager because they've gone 9-7 4 years in a row, which is way better than the crap that happened the 4 years before that. They've won playoff games. They've gone to an AFC title game, and they're 5-2. Like, everybody thinks the sky is falling. They're 5-2. They play a vulnerable Bears team on Sunday at home with an opportunity to get to 6-2 halfway through, and you dealt with a COVID outbreak through it as well. 6-2 with a big 3-game stretch of Colts, Ravens, Colts to have a chance to win the division.
Yeah, and I think the last thing we'll talk about Jon Robinson, he has the emotion factor for Titans fans. He cares. And I think everything, not only his words, but his actions, where he's come from. Home means something to him, Austin. You know that. Yeah. I know that, and everybody else knows that. Yeah. He truly does want this football team and is vested. He's not like a random, fan of the Chiefs or the Patriots or the Packers. Like, he is a Titans fan and has been for all of his life since they've been around. Yeah. And I think that holds some water as well.
So Charles and Chris both bring up good questions about who steps up now at outside linebacker with Beasley gone, because they've got corners, right? Like, you feel good. Luke Warsham put this out yesterday from A to Z Sports saying, you replace Butler, Chris Jackson, and Jonathan Joseph with Adoree Jackson, Desmond King, and Malcolm Butler. That's a good flip there in a week's time to fix your cornerback situation. Outside linebacker is different. Now, you've still got Clowney and Landry who have to be more productive. Derek Roberson, after the cut of Beasley, is the only other guy on the active roster. Now, you've got 2 guys in the practice squad, Skipper and Wyatt Ray. Wyatt Ray, I like the guy in training camp, but, he's a one-year guy out of Boston College. Maybe Mike Vrabel knows a little bit more about him because of the BC connection. But you've got to have somebody come in there and take up snaps and give full-out effort. Like, when the Titans have not had an effort sack this year. Like, they just had, regular.
They've had a lot of effort miss sacks.
Yes, but, get the effort sack because the high motor's still running. Can Wyatt Ray be something like that? Maybe.
Where's Carl Klug?
Probably helping his brother build his fitness business.
There you go. But yeah, I agree with you. They need a lunch pail guy. They have the high draft pick in Landry. They have the high free agent in Clowney. They cut the big free agent in Beasley. You need, and I'm with you, you need the lunch pail, blue collar. I don't give a damn. Nobody knows my name, but I'm about to go make a name for myself because I'm going to try to get past this left or right tackle.
Yeah, just go out there and let the offensive lineman be like, okay, exhale. It's not Clowney. And then just go out there and smack him in the mouth and see what happens. Where is the high effort guy
that? And Donald, that was Correa to a degree, but he got disgruntled and he was banished to Jacksonville.
Right. For the draft pick that helped the Titans get Desmond King potentially, which is great. A to Z Sports, the NFL trade deadline, Zach, leaves us all laughing at one NFL team, and that's the Houston Texans. So we'll do that collectively together, but first tell the people about Calvin and Subtle.
Yeah, Calvin and Subtle is where you can go get your hardwood floors this holiday season. Think outside the box. Talk to your wife, your girlfriend, whatever. If you have a house and you're like, man, I need to rip up these carpet. I need to upgrade. I need to renovate. 2020 has been a long year for us all. We're trying to get out of it. We're about 2 months out. And hopefully we can have a new horizon in 2021. Well, have new hardwood floors as well. 615-448-6414 or online at calvinandsubtle.com. When you pick out your perfect hardwood floor, and they have cost-effective hardwood floors, so it's not going to cost you a bunch of money, 1 to 2 weeks once you pick out your perfect hardwood floor, they'll come in, rip up the old carpet or the old hardwood, replace it with brand new, pristine, new hardwood floors, 1 to 2 weeks. And now you open up your eyes and you're like, wow, I feel a lot better. I like coming home instead of being trapped in it feels like a prison because of the coronavirus over the last 6 months. calvinandsubtle.com. They're trusted in Middle Tennessee. You can trust them. That is why And another reason why they're a presenting sponsor here on A to Z Sports, 615-448-6414.
All right, A to Z Sports. I think the NFL trade deadline allows us to all point and laugh at the Houston Texans. They're 1-6. They're dead to the water. They are out in the ocean stranded, and no lifeboat or no helicopter is going to be able to find them. They are sinking. They're trying to tread water, and they're going to die. That's the Houston Texans. Now, they also fired their coach, fired their GM, and before they fired that same guy, they allowed that guy to trade away all their best assets in the future. And so the Texans have a big, highly paid roster with a lot of salary cap implications, and they needed to get rid of that so they could get some of those assets back that Bill O'Brien traded away. But they couldn't do that. Like, the Houston Texans should have traded Will Fuller. They should have. Will Fuller is a nice receiver having a really good year. But Will Fuller is expendable. Why? Because Will Fuller's hurt 40% of the time. So go get something for Will Fuller, because now the Houston Texans will probably be slotted in the top 10 of the draft, but they're not going to pick until the 70s. And this roster needs new, young talent, and they did nothing to help themselves.
Well, and I'm with Titans for life. Like, trade him for what? Because you brought up his biggest fatal flaw, which is he's injury prone, and everybody in the league knows it, right? Like, the guy cannot stay healthy. So why would a team give up that to go get a guy who cannot stay healthy? Like, he never can, ever.
He actually, this year he is. This year he's had a really good year.
But it's only a matter of time before Will Fuller gets hurt again.
You have to go get something for him. And it's a draft pick, and maybe you can use that draft pick to package with one of your others to go up and get a higher pick up in the top 70, because they need people. They need offensive line. They need defensive line.
You're going to get a seventh-round pick?
No, you're going to get way more than a seventh-round pick.
Obviously not. They didn't trade him.
Because they had too high of an asking price for him. That's what ESPN's Dan Graziano reported, that the Texans were wanting way too high of a draft pick for Will Fuller, so they got stuck with it. They had
how high were they asking?
That was not disclosed, but it was a high pick, because Will Fuller is a former first-round draft pick who's still in his prime. It was a 2016 draft pick.
He's injury prone, though.
But my point is, they had to get something for him, because Will Fuller hanging around next season's not doing anything for the Texans but just having him be more expensive.
I do agree with you. I mean, the Texans were the laughing stock, and they have trended so far down. The Jags, you just expect more from the Texans, because the one good thing that they have done is they drafted their franchise quarterback, right? The Jags, they've been in like purgatory of like being bad for a long, long time. They had the 1 year they went to the AFC Championship game and everybody changed. Then they traded everybody away. They're consistently in reset mode. The Colts are unique, because the Colts, I felt like, were in a bad place when Andrew Luck left, but they have salvaged, right? They have weathered the storm of their franchise quarterback leaving them all of the sudden. They have replaced them. They had they had a down year last year, but they were in the thick of it late in the season. That Titan season actually broke their season. And now they have a veteran quarterback on the last probably leg of his career, and they're sitting here at 5-2, right there with the Tennessee Titans with 2 games to play with the divisional opponent. So out of all, and the Titans have obviously drafted well and picked well, and they have changed their organization because of Derrick Henry and other things. So Titans Colts, man, I knew that was going to be the case at the beginning of the year. I think we all did. Now it's going to play out on the field here on Thursday night to start, and then the Ravens sandwiched in between. They got this gets me juiced. That's why I love NFL football, for matchups and consecutive weeks like that.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a crazy really November, because the Titans lost to the Bengals. That makes the Bears game really important, because they have to bounce back after 2 straight losses. And then you've got that 3-game stretch through Thanksgiving weekend. November is going to be a very important month for this organization to accomplish the goals that they are setting the standard for, because that's winning the AFC South, and November is when they're going to do that
For sure.
or lose it. A to Z Sports here live on a Wednesday. It's time to throw some shade, and I'm going to take your free trial and shove it where the sun don't shine, in this shade. So get your shade ready. I'm fired up about this.
I don't understand, so I'm very curious.
I mean, well, not your free trial personally.
No, I know. I'm curious what your shade is. I don't know what it is. So
Yes, get your shade ready. Throw in shade to end the show every Wednesday. But first, let me tell you guys about Renters Warehouse Nashville, the professional landlords in the Nashville area. RentersWarehouse.com is where to go to find out how much your home can rent for. If you've lost income, unfortunately lost your job because of this pandemic, and you need some extra cash flow, check out renterswarehouse.com. Give them a call or just go to their website and see what they can offer you, because you can get creative with your finances with Renters Warehouse Nashville and renterswarehouse.com.
A to Z Sports. Don't forget mybookie.ag. If you're a Titans fan, we've hooked you up all year long with the promo code MyTitans there, mybookie.ag. You could double your first deposit using code MyTitans this football season. So check that out. We're trying to give back to our Titan fan base.
All right, A to Z Sports, Stolen Shade. Zach, do you want me to start, or you want to go ahead?
You can go ahead.
Okay. So you know how my wife and I love our FBI / cops TV shows, right? And how we binge those things on Netflix. And then we got ourselves in a predicament earlier in the year with Chicago PD, which we did not have access to season 6 of. And now it is Criminal Minds. Criminal Minds is a great show to binge watch, because if you pass out at night watching an episode, it really doesn't matter. You can wake up and watch the next episode the next day and not be lost in the storyline. But we have watched seasons 1 through 12 of Criminal Minds on Netflix. Seasons 13, 14, and 15 are not on Netflix because CBS says, hey, we need to make money off of this. So they create CBS All Access. And CBS All Access is a crock of you-know-what, because CBS All Access allows you a 7-day free trial, but doesn't allow you to actually use the trial for shows like Criminal Minds. And so I sign up for this free trial and Criminal Minds says, no, or CBS All Access says, no, you cannot watch this show. It is unavailable. You can watch clips of Criminal Minds, but CBS All Access, take your free trial and shove it up your ass, because you are a scam and a sham like Ethan Ramsey on my side. CBS All Access can go screw themselves.
That's tough, especially because you have a vested interest in the show,
Yeah, 12 seasons worth.
And how many have you watched?
12 seasons.
And you have 2 left?
3 left.
So what are you going to do?
I don't know.
You going to pay up?
Yes, Netflix has Criminal Minds. That's how I've watched seasons 1 through 12. And then they don't have Criminal Minds for 13, 14, 15. So
what are you going to do?
I don't know. Because remember last time this happened?
How much is it? Yeah, did you end up paying last time this happened?
I'm still in. No, last time it was season 6 of Chicago PD was unavailable on Amazon. So I had to record and DVR every episode as it came on television. And we actually have it on the DVR. We haven't gone back to it yet. So maybe we can do that.
You got to stop watching network television shows, because you're going to continue to run into this problem.
Look, it's a great thing to buy ourselves a couple months of not making decisions. As the less decisions I have to make in my personal life, the better. Like, I eat the same thing every day for breakfast, lunch, and snack. So I don't have to make those decisions. We watch the same thing at night until we run out of episodes, because that's less decisions to make. So I can make more decisions and use my brain power elsewhere.
Pretty simple.
That's
let's read some comments. I have a very interesting shade. Zach says, my shade goes to the CBS announcers, Titans Bengals. They were awful. They should not be on TV again. Louis says, shade on the CNN dude. The maps got me confused. I think everybody's a little bit confused of what's going on with the election, but you can follow along as you do. Rudy says, throwing shade at myself for betting on the Titans to win last Sunday. Brent says, my shade is on the votes not being finished yet. Tanner says, my throwing shade at people who say Corey Davis is a bust.
That's a good one. That's a good shade right there.
Donald says, shade on my job, having to work on Sundays. So there's some shade. So my shade actually comes from the internet that a guy I know tweeted this out. And I thought it was very, very funny. But the final tweet kind of blew my mind. And I know people out there, like, I know everybody doesn't love sports. Like, I get it, right? Mm-hmm. But there is a huge amount that do. And so we are so far ingrained into sports. I think everybody watching is as well.
Yeah.
This is mind-blowing. So, you've gotten these texts leading up to the election, like, hey, LaToya, or I've gotten, I don't know who.
They think I'm Patricia.
Patricia, right? So like everybody
I
has
live in Detroit,
right? Or yeah, so because that's a huge swing city on a swing state. I've been getting them too, right? And I say stop, and then they're like, "Well, I have you vote." So one of my friends, I saw this on Twitter, responded back to the person, I guess the person running the campaign to help out, and the person running the campaign responded back with the most surprising thing I think you'll ever hear, at least for me. So it says, if you look at the tweet, it says, our data shows somebody in the household voted. He goes, listen, I appreciate your concern on making sure I head to the polls tomorrow. However, I've got more important matter going on right now with the Monday Night Football game. Do you think Tom Brady will pull this out in a win? And the person says, I'll be honest, I have never watched football a day in my life.
Honesty.
And I just find that so hard to believe that a person has never watched football a day in their life. Even though, and if they're working on a campaign, I've already kind of done the math. They're at least like 18 years old.
No, they have to be at least 18.
But so this person has never watched football a day in their life.
Well, and I find that really hard to accomplish because
I think it's impossible.
Because so many people watch the Super Bowl, but they watch it for non-football reasons.
I know, but you still watch football. And I believe that this person, whoever it is being honest, right?
Again, and again, all of us, like Kevin saying, come on, how do you not like football? And Dom saying,
not about liking. It's not about liking.
I agree. It's about just stumbling upon something and be like, oh, that game's on TV. No, again, I'm with you because, and my thing of like, why that's so hard to believe is that so many hundreds of millions of people watch the Super Bowl every year that this one person in a minimum 18 opportunities has watched some part of the Super Bowl.
You would think.
Yes, you would think.
So it's either, and I've kind of put this up in the air, either shade on this person for lying or shade on this person for not experiencing what football could do. That thing could change your life. That's fine. But I don't know what to think about because there's no way that they've never watched, and they were specific, a day in their life.
Yeah. I don't know.
I found that baffling. Again, you don't have to be a sports fan. It's perfectly okay with me. I don't think that that's possible to live on in America.
BMO brings up a really good point. What if they're blind?
How did they text?
Oh, dude, come on, man.
I guess Braille?
There are a lot of, like, they can text. They can figure things out. And, like, I've had to accomplish that. Yeah.
I think that's a huge assumption.
I'm just saying.
That's a huge assumption.
Oh, massive. But there's always –
It's a massive assumption. Right. Everybody has the outlier. And, I respect the outlier.
You never know.
Maybe they are blind.
Yeah. Christian's like, come on, bro, speech to text. Now, the problem why you don't believe that it wasn't speak to text is because there were not enough weird words and misspelled things and wrong words in the speak to text.
So it really needed a follow-up. Are you blind? But then that would have come across disheartening, right?
Yes, because then what if they say yes? Then now you feel like an asshole.
And then, no, and then you respond, makes sense then.
Yes. Oh, I see. Have you listened on radio?
So I don't know. I wanted to bring that up on the show because I found that a little bit baffling.
There you go. All right, guys. Great Wednesday show. Again, Jon Robinson speaking, excuse me, via Zoom to the Titans media coming up at 10:35. Make sure you're following A to Z Sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for updates on that media availability. And then we will see you guys tomorrow morning for a Titans Thursday. A lot of Titans this week. Also, Buck Rising back tonight, A to Z Sports Primetime. We've also got the Tighten Up podcast with that episode out this morning on the A to Z Sports Podcast Network. So plenty of content for you guys to consume. Hope you have a good Wednesday. We'll talk to you later.
Adios.